Judge!
It is. Which side do you want? Track side or field side? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Really cool. Do you know what the scenario
I'll
is?
have the side for French. That's it.
They have a question about the terrain. And
Wat die question are you
dus 6 stukken pakken, 2 stukken pakken. One of you have a tape measure, you can start measuring this out. So yeah, start putting these zones down, and then when he's putting down the terrain.
Kannst du uns das Szenario mal durchgeben?
Scenario
6.
so number 6.
Das ist bei 2, also bei 8 Detektor kann ich.
Patience, young one.
Aufgeregt.
Kommt schon gut. Wenn da irgendwelche
Ich habe keine Ahnung, welches Ding.
Recon
Nee, das ist das mit den 2 Kreisen. Das muss da drüber
two
sein.
titties.
Also Szenario 5. 2 Flags. 20.
14 von der Seite für die Zirkeln, for the circles, and 20 from the back on the center line. You have the flags. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you are. We are coming to you live from Amsterdam from the ClogCon2017 European Invitational. My name is George Busher, and I will be your host for this game, and hopefully many more in future. We are just getting set up here on different streaming platforms and media platforms. We are getting the table ready right now.
24, like die Flaggen.
20 from the back. Sorry, just giving some instructions to the players to set up the scenario. Once the table has been set up, we're going to get going with the caster selection and then deployment, and then we'll make sure everything is sorted out on a technical terms. For any of you who are watching right now, if you could give any comments and suggestions about sound quality and noise levels, now would be the best time to do so. If not, then go and get yourselves a drink and get comfortable.
I have Anastasia break. Now I got +1. Okay, then I'm gonna go start. And I have your my list. Yes. Black spot, then you can just kill your entire. What is the matchup going to be? Issyria for me. Issyria, Nemo. Like, of course. Probably should. Yeah. Which side do you take?
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Issyria in the Shadows of Retribution versus Nemo3 in Storm Division.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Are you staying on the same table sides? You're on the right side of the table?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to be polite. Opposite of the typical politics. So, can I get you your hand? They are really nice. No, just one. I showed this list in script. Sorry. It's basically different. Okay. Yeah. You are playing WTC for French? No. Because my girlfriend comes from French. My girlfriend comes from French, but she's really near the border, so she's really cool on speaking French.
Okay. So we're just getting the graphics sorted out.
I'll message people too. War on the Twitch. It's War Room here 2. So number 2. Anastasia will ambush. That was my ordinary. You just have one Agno, right? One Agno.
Ist Scholl mit 2L, ne?
Ja. Sogar mit Nachnamen?
Ja, das ist offiziell. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome one, welcome all. The camera has been bumped, I will adjust. So the tables are players are just preparing the tables. And getting the required game tokens and models, agreeing on particular rules, interactions, terrain features and whatnot. So dear viewers, you are heartily welcome to this, the third round of the Masters event in ClogCon2017. We have on the left side of the table our dear friend Christoph Scholl, who I realize I have just misspelled. And on the right side of the table from France, we have Nicael Blazel. Now, Nicael will be playing Issyria, and Christoph will be playing Nemo3. So whilst they're deploying and getting set up, let's take a quick look at the scenario and the players' armies. First of all, going to scenario, we will be playing the Steamroller 2017 packet, and we will be playing scenario number 5, Outlast. This scenario features 2 large circular zones that can be scored by infantry and your warcasters. And then we also have 2 flags on the center line in the middle of the map, 20 inches from the back edge of their deployment, which can be scored by solos and warcasters. So in terms of a scenario, we have something that favors the central push with a battle group combined with a flanking push on both sides with infantry. Keeping that in mind, it appears that Christoph has deployed to counter exactly that by clustering his anti-infantry shooting on the flanks and his more hard-hitting elements towards the middle. So whilst Nika is deploying, let's take a look at the army lists. First of all, we have deployed on the left side of the table the Storm Division, led of course by Nemo3. He has in his battle group a Dynamo, a Lancer and a Squire. He has Anastasia Debray. He has Arlen Strangeways and a Journeyman Warcaster, both of which are for free. Also the Squire is for free. And the Journeyman Warcaster has a Firefly attached to him. He also has 3 Stormsmith Stormcallers, a max unit of Storm Lancers and 2 Storm Striders. Nikael has brought with him the Shadows of the Retribution theme force, with Issyria with a Hyperion and Hemera in her battle group, a Mage Hunter Assassin and a Niall, both of which are for free. He has 2 mechanics. He has a max unit of Mage Hunter Strike Force with Iris 3 and a Solus Escort, and he also has a Bare Bones Strike Force unit, also max. In addition to this, he has the Spears of Syra. Okay. I'll now take a closer look at the table to get you the exact model placements of things such as casters and important solos. Be right back.
We don't need any focus allocation because Storm Strider.
And we are underway, ladies and gentlemen. Turn 1. Christoph making his opening bid. So, having taken a closer look, we have Nemo right here, with Arlen standing right next to him. We have Anastasia Debray in ambush. We have the caster Issyria over here, with Iris 3 in the back of the Mage Hunter unit, and a Mage Hunter on the flanks. So there Christoph pushing aggressively to set up to contest and clear the 2 circular zones with his Storm Striders. He is now advancing Dynamo. And one of the Stormsmith Stormcallers. So important factors especially given this deployment and distribution of forces, is that we are going to be seeing a very heavy push, probably from Nikael, for the right-hand zone. All of his infantry is concentrated over there. He may potentially want to keep the Spears of Syra in a position to be able to potentially control that zone at a later stage in the game. He should be aware of that. Christoph will have to make sure to try and use this obstructing piece of terrain to funnel Nikael's forces into a position here whereby he can land the Electroleaps, potentially even off of his own Storm Lancers, to just demolish the Mage Hunter infantry. Once those once that Mage Hunter Strike Force unit is taken care of, his Warjacks are only really threatened by the Hyperion. Now, the Hyperion player in this map, I think, will be crucial. There's a high chance that he will use it to simply contest this bottom zone and to keep his flag safe. We will see if Christoph has the armor piercing capability to take out a Colossal, especially at armor 21 and with force fields. that can be regenerated and repaired.
I'm doing no still, so I have to use an installer. But I want to build.
So everything now just running and getting into position for turn 2 for Christoph. It was a fairly fast turn. He has 55 minutes left on the clock. Nico is now thinking about what his options are. It seems that Christoph has left pretty much everything in his army outside the 18-inch threat of the Mage Hunter Strike Force, leaving Nico a decent degree of freedom to focus on trying to get as much board position as possible. Potentially it might be in his best interest to use that central forest here as a key piece of terrain in order to be able to project into the bottom zone or onto the enemy flag if necessary. Keeping in mind that these patches, these yellow patches, are rubble. And this means that Christoph has the capability of putting his caster or a solo onto this flag, and he has enough of them to control the flag and still have the cover bonuses, making him hard to kill. So Nico is making a tentative push now into the right hand zone. And let me just take a look at what that model in the very bottom is. Okay, so the bottom model, this model down here is in fact Nile. He will probably be making a contest all gameplay by skirting around the edge of this zone and just towing in. So that's a very low cost way of doing it. So he is sending the Spears of Syra now into that direction. These will probably be backed up by the Colossal. Although having seen the recent games today, including a very well played Makeda 1 going into Cygnar as well, utilizing these models as shield guards for critical electro leaps may be more valuable than using this bottom zone. So for instance, a construction whereby you have a heavy warjack around about here with 2 Spears of Syra in base to base, or even 1 in base to base, and then in behind some potentially infiltrators because they're the most disposable in base to base, then you have the chance of protecting your Mage Hunter Strike Force by shield guarding the Electro Leap shot and then tanking it through Hemera and then maybe losing 1 infiltrator, potentially 2 if your opponent has really good dice. We have a question from the chat of whether Makeda 1 won the first game. Yes, she did, via a Malik Khan walking assassination that was triggered by a hyper-aggressive move at the very end of the Cygnar player's turn. So he had no time to respond to the hyper-aggressive triggering from the theme list. and then Molikan was just within walking range of a Haley 2 that had no focus, and it was game over. So
Nemo can hold this for free.
So another quick turn, this time from Nickel, just advancing forward, putting only 3 models into the top zone and no models into the bottom zone. And now it is back to Christoph. Now, the problem that Christoph faces, obviously, is the amount of stealth that Nickel has in his list, making it very hard to be able to get those Storm Strider shots off, meaning that he will probably have to sacrifice at least 1, if not 2 Storm Lancers every turn in order to get his money's worth. At the same time, if he does this too aggressively, he may end up killing his own models and not enough of the enemy models to justify the sacrifice. Christoph just checking the rules for the Spears of Siren because he doesn't know how they work, and wants to know how easy they are to kill. The answer, of course, is very, if you can hit them. Defense 17 in melee is no joke, and defense 15 with stealth against guns and magic is also no joke. However, once you do hit them, they will just explode into the breeze. But that's kind of also their job. So, ideal situation that Nickel is hoping here is some missed attacks, meaning no leaps, meaning no ability to reposition away. That is, if Christoph is actually engaging in melee. We'll take a look. If you roll some attack dice. Yep. So we have a charge. Now, even with the boosted to hit rolls, he gets the first one. Second charge attack goes in, boosted to hit, and thanks to the boost from the cavalry, makes it. So the Electro Leap actually leapt to the flag, and as flags are immune to all attacks, did nothing. So one Mage Hunter Strike Force was saved by a lightning rod. So now we're seeing the reposition moves. Now the reposition move from this Stormlance most likely means that the enemy flag will be the closest Electroleap target, meaning that the Electroleaps have to focus on this bottom Stormlance, who will try to kill another Spear of Syra and Niall. Which we're seeing right now from the activation from the bottom Storm Strider. Gets the 3 leaps, which will most likely get the perfect daisy chain that he's looking for. And doing 2 damage to Niall and bouncing against a Spear of Sai, which should kill him with a 9. And then we'll also bounce harmlessly to the Hyperion. So now with the second shot, we'll be doing the same thing again, and hopefully he's looking for that 1 leap to kill Niall, which is what we're seeing right there. So we have 2 Spears of Syra down, which means that we are going to have a Vengeance trigger, obviously, next turn. However, there is not that much for Iris 3 to really do good work against. The ideal situation would be that the extra threat range from the Vengeance allows you to either get someone like Arlen Strangeways or a Journeyman Warcaster, preferably if they have Arcane Shield on themselves. So we have a Sacrificial Lamb, Stormcaller, running in right now, just to contest the top zone and to probably provide one more leap point straight into the Mage Hunter unit. Nikael correctly observing that it is in fact impossible to account for all of the potential Electroleap vectors a Cygnar player can generate, especially with this many models that have Electroleap and this many models that are able to quickly move into a position where they can be used as a bounce target for these Electroleaps. So however, Christoph has to keep in mind that every piece that he puts in this position to be a bounce target will then quite easily be taken away from him in the following turn, which means that each Electroleap must be worth the sacrifice. We will see if it is. Stormlance is being one of the few units in Christoph's army that is capable of doing significant damage to the Hyperion, and it appears that he has given Nikael 2 of these. Now, this bottom Stormlance definitely was worth the sacrifice, being able to take out a Spear of Syra and Niall and really clearing up this right side flank. This would really allow him to roll around behind Nikael pretty much with impunity and get behind that Hyperion. That one is definitely worth it. The question is whether or not this second Stormlance was also worth it. In retrospect, probably yes, because he killed the Spear of Syra, but it's tricky because he didn't get any useful Electroleaps out of it. There we go. First Electroleap going in. Takes out. Yep, there we have Nemo3 arcing a Chain Lightning onto the Hyperion. Barely making it. Does no damage and gets 2 leaps, removing 2 more models. So Christoph is really thinning the herd here now, and with every Mage Hunter Assassin that Nikael loses, he loses that much more Warjack killing capability. And once you lose enough Mage Hunters, Strike Force, then essentially you will be ground down. And that is potentially what we are seeing here. So Christoph really staying back from that top zone and just trying to be sure to get at least another turn of sandpapering after this turn. He's really taking no chances of taking any damage on that northern flank, and he just wants to use this Stormcaller model here as effectively as possible. And I'm not sure, but this may potentially also be 4-inch. And there we see that. And then we have a roll of 3 for the bounce. That is exactly the kind of money shot that Christoph needed there. That was a very, very big electro leap. He's going to do it again, and he's going to try and leap it through the flag onto the Colossal. He rolls a 3 again and gets, potentially, he gets the mechanic. So Christoph just shot the Storm Strider into this Storm Caller, who electro-leaped via Nikhail's flag onto the Colossal, and lastly onto a mechanic that was standing behind the Colossal. Meaning Nikhail's focus efficiency next turn is going to be diminished. Meaning that he's going to have to assign focus if he wants to have a fully loaded Colossal. One more Electro Leap like that, and the other engineer dies, and then the armor piercing capability of the Hyperion will go all the way down the drain, because he will lose the +2 to melee damage rolls, which is a big deal if you are trying to get efficiency out of your Retribution Colossal.
And they are not. And 7. So 3-2.
Indeed, Artemusi, that was a very serious demonstration of the E-Leap power plays right there. Exposing, as you rightfully say, the weaknesses of the Issyria Shadows list. The fact that the Storm Striders largely ignore the Mage Hunter Strike Force shooting, which regular kind of battle group heavy armies do not, makes a huge difference. I think Nikhail would have been better served playing it either much more aggressively and denying more space, potentially sacrificing his infiltrators to do so, or playing it much safer and then trying to go for a turn 2 Alpha Strike with Issyria and range damage. So we have Christoph now ending his second turn on 44 minutes. Nikhail has 51 minutes on his clock and is now beginning his second turn, meaning that scoring will start at the end of this turn. Now, scoring this particular zone should be fairly easy for Nikhail, because he does in fact have the unit attachment for the Mage Hunter Strike Force, I believe.
1 on the Crafted, 4 on the Gate Rager, and...
No, he does not. And that will make things considerably more difficult, as Christoph has moved one contesting model behind this large obstruction here. However, I don't imagine that there will be too many difficulties getting at least one shot off on what appears to be a Stormsmith Stormcaller. Yes. Okay, so we see Hemera getting into position. She will most likely be targeting Dynamo with her gun, which is probably because he's... Oh, there we go, that's a nice hit. And that is a crit dispel, which is exactly what Nikhail wants to see right now, because now it means that that Dynamo no longer has Electrify on him, which means he loses 2 armor. and then he repositions forward, probably to get into a position to arc a blinding light across the Stormsmith Stormcrawler right into the top Stormstrider. If he hits that blinding light, that Stormstrider is doing nothing next turn. So this really is the way that Issyria beats this list, is by being able to reliably get blinding light onto the Stormstriders every turn. And Nikhil in his list only has Chimera. He only has the one arc node. He doesn't have any expendable arc nodes. If Christoph can take Chimera out, then that threat is gone, and the Stormstriders will just run the table. There we go, and there's the blinding light, ladies and gentlemen. And there is the second blinding light. As far as I can see, that is going down on Dynamo, which is a good choice. Dynamo has a surprisingly good gun, and Chimera is not built to take a Dynamo volley to the face during Nemo3's feet turn. She will just get melted. So, very smart play there. Oh.
Nothing, because you take one away from the feet and then 6.
So no damage on the Storm Lance. I'm not sure whose damage roll that was. I'm also not sure if Issyria popped her feet. I would be surprised if she hasn't. This is probably the only turn that Nikhil will have to really utilize his feet. Well, maybe next turn. Hyperion probably will survive until next turn. Mage Hunter going in. Oh, so we do have a feat from Issyria. Mage Hunter is trying to take out the Storm Lance with its Power 9 decapitating Weapon Master. This should fairly reliably kill him. Indeed, there we go. Now the problem with having Chimera as your arc node, as shown in this case, is that you can't pop your feet before you get your Chimera into position, which means that she doesn't get the benefit from the feat, which is a shame. That being said, Nikhil just rolled the hard 6 and got the crit dispel anyway, so yeah. In this particular case it wasn't too bad, but that is one of the disadvantages of the build, I find.
How much? 30 strong.
Okay, let me just check where Iris 3 is positioned.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't see it on the camera.
Okay, so we have Iris3 just sitting comfortable right here behind the Colossal because she is attached to the, I believe, the Blue Strike Force. Yes, according to the list, she's attached to the Blue Strike Force, so he might have to check his command range on her later on. So the Mage Hunters are now opening up on any kind of available targets that they can get. So putting taking out the Spark Node Stormcaller here in the middle. They're obviously going to want to take out this Spark Node over here as well. And the top group of 4 is just taking some damage onto the Stormstrider. So this is Iris. That's right, there we go. So Iris was actually attached to the red unit of Mage Hunters. My apologies then. So the Iris unit of Mage Hunters is activating now. They're going to try, it looks like they'll get 2 into the... Yeah, so there's a few points of damage there going into Dynamo, and then a second shot going into the Stormcaller there. That was trying to score the flag, and then repositioning back. So it looks like Nikkel has so far lost 8 Mage Hunter Strike Force, so almost half of his contingent. And he has so far not done any significant damage to either the Stormstriders or any of the Warjacks on the Cygnar side. So there we have the contest, the war contest with the Hyperion. As we'd predicted earlier, he's probably just going to plan to remain largely in this area and try to do as much damage through shooting as possible, and then potentially clear the zone so that someone may capture it. And unfortunately at this point, with the Spears of Syra being dead, the only one that is able to do so is Issyria, which the way that the table is set up right now could potentially start happening next turn, but would be much too dangerous in terms of positioning. So he's taking his shots on the just trying to clean up as many Storm Lancers as he can. No, also doing some damage to the Firefly. It looks like he's done approximately 15 boxes, taking out the right arm on the Lancer. The Arc Node still looks intact, so potentially we could be seeing another Chain Lightning next turn. That is right. Nikkel does score 1 point for his flag, which he is controlling with the Mage Hunter Assassin. The flag on Christoph's side was being cleared by the activation of the Mage Hunters. So now there's a very significant chance that we might be seeing a Nemo3 feat turn. Although, to be fair, he's going to have to do a Nemo3 feat turn without Dynamo and without 1 Stormstrider. which will significantly impact his damage output in a negative way. And there we have Anastasia Debray. Like the true professional he is, Christoph Scholl has in fact remembered his ambush unit and has remembered to in fact put it on the table and not just leave it on his model tray for the entire game before realizing after having clocked out that he had a model that he never played. So one focus assigned to the Firefly, which will likely be getting a run order and will probably be attempting to range in his bubble both Chimera and Hyperion if possible. Now, that's a 5-inch bubble. It's about to hit, and the question is whether or not that will also reach as far as getting Chimera without one Firefly bubble. We will see if it is possible. Now, when I said the Storm Strider was going to do nothing this turn, I failed to remember that it is still a giant, big, stompy robot battle engine. So Christoph has decided to throw it into melee, which against most models and units would be a very bad decision, but against the Mage Hunter Strike Force is a perfectly acceptable decision. Fairly decent for having been blinding lighted and still being able to kill 2 Mage Hunter Strike Force. That is acceptable. Not only that, but he is putting a solid contesting piece into the top zone, meaning he won't have to commit Dynamo, which means he can save Dynamo for next turn and use Nemo3's feet and Dynamo's gun to really put a hurting on Hyperion. If he can kill Chimera or tie her up, then he can be safe next turn from the blinding lights, and in the turn after that he will be able to unleash all of his firepower on the Hyperion, and if he does that and he kills the Hyperion, then in my eyes he will have won the game. Lancers are activating now, going for the cavalry charge. This is really one of Christoph's only real maneuvers in this army to get a large amount of melee damage going. I mean, Dynamo is fairly handy in melee, but he is not a one-rounder. So let's take a look at how much damage Christoph can do against this Colossal. So we have 8 damage for the first roll, doing a good chunk of damage to the shields. And we also have to keep aware that all of these things are going to be electroleaping, but fortunately for Nikael, the closest thing to the Colossal that is a viable electroleap target is the flag, which of course is immune. So Christoph manages to completely fluff one of his charge rolls and is actually just... There is a good roll, but only manages to hit 2 attacks out of 4 with the boosted cavalry charges against the Defense 10 model. So congratulations, Christoph. You have, in fact, shit dice, and you need to get better dice. But those 2 attacks that did hit did in fact do a fair bit of damage, having taken out the shield and 1 column. That brings us to, I believe, 18 damage so far. So he still has quite a lot to go through, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it without his feet. and I think it's going to take him 2 turns at the least. So very aggressive positioning now by the Firefly, and as we predicted, it is probably going to catch both the Colossal and Chimera. So we will most likely be seeing a feed turn now from Nemo.
Then we have Nemo sacrifice.
So currently the scenario scoring is 1-0 in Nikhail's favor. Currently he is in a position to maintain this lead. He's not going to be getting any points because of these contesting Storm Lancers, so his flag will not be scored, and he's not going to be getting either of the zones. And now the question is, can Christoph clear the top zone and start scoring? Now Christoph is definitely going to be looking to scoring his own flag this turn with, I believe, a Squire, which should bring him to 1-1. We have Nemo moving now, taking into account his old man stats and the fact that he can easily get sniped out, and is going to play just towing into the kill box. And is going to arc a chain lightning through his Lancer onto the Firefly with 2 leaps off of the flag into the Mage Hunter, which kills him. So very nice chain lightning there, getting just the right number of leaps, and he takes a shot at his own Firefly, and now we are put in an awkward positioning of having to look up whether or not he hits his own model, and he barely does with a 5. Unfortunately, the flag is once again turning out to be a very effective lightning rod, redirecting it away from the Mage Hunter Strike Force. Then we have an Electroleap going into Chimera. The question is, who launched it? I believe it is the Stormcaller over here who's doing this Electroleap. Oh no, sorry, I believe that may have been a hand cannon. Yes, Frederick, I think the impact of the nerf really ensured that Christoph's dice would fail him at a critical moment, and he would screw up that many attack rolls, boosted attack rolls. So, as far as I can tell, no feat has yet been popped, so Christoph does appear to be saving it for the Colossal, which makes sense. The Storm Strider is going to try and put down some damage on Chimera, with a bit of luck taking out the Arc Node, and also looking to E-Leap into another batch of Mage Hunters. Getting the 6 on the E-Leaps once again. There we go, honey. That's how we make money. Taking out almost the entirety of the Red Mage Hunter Strike Force squad, and doing the rest of the remaining shields on Chimera. And Chimera does not have a lot of boxes, and she does not have high armor, so this second shot could really put a hurting on her. Getting another 2 leaps and another 2 Mage Hunter Strike Force go down, for a total of 5 now in this Stormstrider's activation. Okay, 5 Mage Hunter Strike Force, and at the same time they're doing crap tons of damage to the Chimera. We're about to see if she even survives this shot. Not with rolling like that, she won't. Ding, ding, ding. We have a 16 roll for the damage with -1, looking at 15 boxes, and this is going to take out a whole bunch of systems. But the Arc Node endures. Ladies and gentlemen, the Arc Node endures, and she is not engaged. Meaning that at the very least, Nikael has one more turn of relative safety from at least one Stormstrider and Dynamo's gun, which will go a long way to buying Hyperion the time to clear himself up, because he's jammed with Stormlancers. And hopefully, if we're really lucky, then we might get to see a power attack sweep to kill 4 Stormlancers. I'm taking bets, ladies and gentlemen, to see if this is going to happen. $5 buys you in. Will we see a power attack sweep? And I believe Chimera was just slammed. So that is very interesting. Potato Salad 1 says, we want to see the Colossals die. Well, I think we might potentially see a Hyperion die, and if Nikael can get really lucky, maybe one Stormstrider. I don't think we are going to see that many more huge bases leaving the table. And Potato Salad, you are correct, there is a lot of Cygnar at the tournament, but they are currently quite diverse, and it's not just the same Haley 2 show all day. We have some very interesting matchups, very interesting lists, and I have to say, from what I've seen, Nemo3 seems to be one of the big winners recently, and he seems to be very popular here, and he seems to be quite effective. But there are, as we saw earlier today, counters, and that I think makes things very interesting, not only in list chicken but in table play. Okay, so we ended Christoph's third turn here with 30 minutes left on the clock. He is on 1 control point. His opponent Nikael is beginning his third turn now with 39 minutes left on the clock and 1 control point. Nikael has a couple of challenges right now, I think. First of all, he is jammed in the bottom, and his Hyperion is basically alone without any support, and he has to slog through a whole bunch of Stormlancers. However, if he does so, potentially he can kill all of this stuff. The problem is, that's going to take him at least 3 turns. The question is, does he have 3 turns? Because his right flank is collapsing. And that was supposed to be his heavy push flank. He should already be here with his army, and Christoph's army should be down here, trying desperately to contest this top zone. And anything going in there should be getting shot to pieces by Mage Hunter Strike Force and Chimera guns and Mage Hunter Assassin attacks. But that's not what's going on right now. We see a hard counter push from the Cygnar heavier elements not doing a particularly huge amount of damage. Remember, this Stormstrider only killed 2 Mage Hunters, and this Dynamo only slammed Hemera back a little bit and did a few boxes of damage. He didn't do a lot of damage, but he applied a lot of scenario pressure. These Mage Hunter Strike Force can't get to the juicy targets they want to now. They can't get to the caster, they can't help the Hyperion, so they're stuck, and they have to deal with the few numbers they have left. They have to find a way to deal with this Stormstrider and this Dynamo, who are perfectly happy to engage them in melee combat just to make sure they don't get shots and just kill a couple guys every turn. Stormstrider doesn't care about taking a couple of damage every turn. So Nico has to start doing things differently. He has to save his Hemera. That is the #1 priority right now, is he has to make sure that Hemera stays alive for at least 1 more, preferably 2 more turns. And here we see her setting up to once again blinding light both Dynamo and the Stormstrider in the top zone, which will mean that the Hyperion will not get bursted down by gunfire, but it doesn't do anything to protect the Mage Hunter Strike Force, who are contesting that zone and trying to fight their way through the Stormstrider. They're still going to take more casualties next turn, and the Stormstrider won't care about the damage he suffers. And then eventually Hemera is going to have to go toe-to-toe with Dynamo, and no way in a million years is she gonna win that. Not with 7 boxes left. So currently things are looking fairly bleak for Nico. He really now is in a position where he has to get work out of Issyria herself. He has to commit his caster now, and the only real chance I think he has is by clearing the bottom zone, and maybe he has to clear the bottom zone and start scoring and applying pressure via scenario. That is the only way that he's going to be able to do it, because assassination right now is completely out of the question. He can try and set up in such a way to get the assassination next turn, but I don't think he has enough pieces that can do damage. The only piece that can do it is Hyperion. As long as Christoph plays it conservatively and plays his Nemo3 back, towing into the kill box, I don't see this Hyperion getting the assassination. I also don't see this Hyperion doing the power sweep. Yeah. So he's just gonna remain in place and throw punches. I'm not sure that is the best idea. Well, to be honest, it doesn't matter. But I believe mathematically he would have been better off doing a power sweep with the correct rotation and then buying attacks from his remaining arc. Ooh. He fails to kill the last Storm Lance. That is a huge problem. That is a huge problem because all he has left is Iris 3. And she is charging? Yep, she's charging. You can tell he's had to check up the stats for the melee weapon of Iris 3 because no one memorizes that stuff. So we have indeed a charge, and we're going to see if that's not bad. That is not bad for a damage roll at all. I believe we're dealing with a Power 9 Weapon Master. And then he fluffs his second attack with a double 1. So that is very unfortunate. So now he no longer has any way of clearing that one contesting Storm Lance in the bottom. Obviously there's still a Lancer behind it, but The Stormlance is not only contesting but standing in the way of Nikael's Colossal, and that can be very annoying and very obstructive. He also is not able to score the flag, his own flag, fearing that he would expose his caster too much. And he wasn't able to do any significant damage to Dynamo. He's jammed him up with one Mage Hunter Strike Force in an attempt to keep Hemera safe from Dynamo. We will see if Hemera survives this turn. There is a chance that she may, because she is not a existential threat right now. I think if Christoph focuses on removing all of the remaining infantry models that Nikael has, and then focus firing the Colossal over the space of next 2 turns, then he is going to be in there with a very high certainty of a win, eventually via scenario. And the one who's going to make it all happen is this Squire. And Squire right here is going to keep sitting on this flag, and Nikael is not going to have the enough attacks to take it out. And that is going to win Christoph the game. So we had a missed attack from the Firefly on Iris 3. We have a... that's unfortunate. We have a charge attack, minimum range charge from the Stormlance with an E-leap onto the nearest mechanic, killing him instantly because you always end up within 3 inches of your target. And doing a few more points to the Hyperion. So now we have Nemo, who's probably going to be going in for the feat turn, having just been given Arcane Shield from the Journeyman Warcaster, I believe. There we have Anastasia Debray charging Hemera and triggering Admonition. Obviously placing himself out of melee range of Anastasia Debray. But now he's in a fixed position where he may potentially have Hemera engaged by Dynamo. We have the feat coming down now from Nemo3 and a Chain Lightning once again arcing through the Lancer in the bottom onto the Firefly in the middle in order to bounce to Iris. And Iris lives, boosted, and there she's dead. And another Mage Hunter Strike Force also goes down. So then Nemo3 now using his gun, targeting Dynamo, who's obviously engaged. So he chooses to boost the to hit roll, which is a good thing that he did, because
so he's 12 base goes to 16 because of
yeah, so he rolls a 10 with a rat 6, will hit the defense 16 of Dynamo. Defense 16 obviously being modified down to defense 14 for the rear arc. And he gets that obstructing Mage Hunter Strike Force, meaning that potentially now we can see Dynamo advancing and potentially engaging Hemera, which would most likely be a death sentence for Hemera because she has no more admonition, and considering that she has lost almost all of her boxes, she will probably not be able to survive a free strike from Dynamo, which will then open the way for the Stormstrider to completely rule the top zone.
One smooth fire on the Hyperion.
We did not have a blinding light. That is correct. Yes, we did not have a blinding light on Dynamo last turn, meaning that now he is going to unload on the Hyperion.
12 plays, 14 because of the Firefly, so it's -5 back.
So here we see the hopefully quad fire, fully boosted damage roll Dynamo 6-shooter approach going down onto the Hyperion.
It's -4, boosting the damage. -4.
Keeping in mind that Nemo3's feat is additional die, not boosted. So we are looking at boosted damage rolls plus the additional die. And there goes the entire right side of the Hyperion. We're now going into the third shot of Dynamo's volley. Who's going to be rolling at dice -3 damage on this Hyperion,
Yeah, he gets everybody.
which is going to be boosted and additional die, and with a whole bunch of 6s in it. And if he keeps rolling like this, that Hyperion is toast,
Last shot.
doing a whole bunch of damage.
This is 0 from the bond. I will look it up. I can't roll.
He rolls a 3 followed by a 4 after the reroll,
Yeah. I always can reroll it. So it's -2.
which hits barely. Christoph having a lot of difficulty this game, hitting almost certain attacks into this Hyperion. And the last shot will leave Hyperion on 3 boxes, ladies and gentlemen. 3 boxes, which means that something as simple as a Stormstrider shot will finish the job here. Will allow Christoph to score the bottom zone and allow him to take a completely overwhelming lead in terms of attrition. Having lost the Iris 3, having lost all the Mage Hunters, losing now the Hyperion, means that Nikao has no more fighting forces left, and we are probably going to see a very quick resolution of this game in Christoph's favor. There it is. And there it is, the Colossal is gone. As predicted, we have the Dynamo quad fire boosted additional die feated damage just ripping through that Colossal. From what I remember, it probably did about 40 plus damage, which is absolutely tremendous, especially at range. To have that kind of a damage potential is incredible. So Christoph really showing the strengths of this list, the incredible infantry clearing capability combined with the necessary armor-piercing, armor-melting gunshots that can just melt things like Colossals, as you just saw. Keeping in mind this was an armor 21 Colossal that he just melted. This wasn't an armor 19 Colossal, this was a armor 21 Colossal, so that is no joke. And Christoph now has a few activations left. He has a blinded Strider left to go. He's going to be slowly making his way around the obstructive terrain in the top zone. He's not going to be able to get a hold of Hemera or that Soulless Escort. So finishing his turn 3 there, I believe, turn 3. scoring 2 points. With 21 minutes left, Christoph has now 3 control points to Nikhail's 1 control point, and Nikhail really is in dire straits right now. I personally don't see any way out. His soulless escorts and badly beaten up Hemera are not really going to be able to do anything. Maybe with full focus and a lot of luck, they might be able to take out the top Stormstrider and position themselves in such a way to be right here, just contesting this top zone and just within range to Blinding Light Dynamo and be far enough away from the gunshots from the south Stormstrider. There is a significant chance that Issyria is going to have to do. I think at this point the only viable option would be for Issyria to go approximately to here in order to Blinding Light both the Warjack, the Dynamo, and also the bottom battle engine, and then arcing a Blinding Light up here, scoring this flag, and putting admonition on herself. The problem is she's then left with no focus and only admonition to save her, which means that she will just get E-leap to death. But other than that, I don't see. But then again, if everything that is dangerous and shoots big E-leaps has been blinding lighted, she might survive. She might survive just by her high defense and some crappy rolling on Christoph's side. Maybe she can get to a point where she can try and score this point. And I just realized this Firefly is probably contesting. Actually, this Firefly is definitely contesting because it's arced a lot of E-leaps onto the flag. So he would have to tank it with Hemera, which could have been done by a slam. He's chosen to try and put some damage down on Dynamo, which would have been a sensible choice in the last 2 turns. But I think in this kind of situation, the only thing that you have are desperate plays, and I think the slam to remove this Firefly from contesting in order to start scoring here and to potentially, yeah, that's it. There was no way he could contest this bottom zone. So I believe we have a concede from Nika. Well, no, we don't. Okay, so we have a imminent scenario victory from Christoph, who at the end of this turn is automatically going to score both this flag right here and this bottom zone right here. And as I predicted, this little squire right here is going to ensure that the game is won for Christoph by just being a small, insignificant target, scoring a flag over and over and over and over and over again. So the Mage Hunter Strike Force that was contesting Christoph's flag has now been killed. The only thing that remains is to kill Hemera, which the Stormstrider will do now with its guns. With, I believe it, only a 111 will save him here. There we go. There's the Hemera. He's no longer contesting the top zone. However, Christoph needs to realize that he's not actually scoring the top zone because he needs his caster in there. But what he's going to do instead, he's going to score the double flag. So double flag scoring with his Squire moving up, and there we go. We have the GG. Christoph Scholl winning by scenario 5-1 against Nikhail Blazel.
I think if you have the Hyperion, it's much harder for me because I
Was
play a lot with
a very forceful demonstration of the power of Nemo3.
if I can start.
Very well utilized spark nodes, particularly in this matchup where there are so many beautiful targets for those electro leaps. So many Armor 11 models on the table that potentially the Issyria may not have been the best choice into this matchup, but we will find out from the players what their choices were. Yes, your papers. But there is a. So players just filling in their score sheets now. Kung Hop, indeed. Cygnar winning the first turn, I think, was very important in that matchup. That was really very decisive. The ability to start turn 2 by having all of your spark nodes in position to start doing damage fairly deep into your opponent's territory on the top of 2 was, I think, very critical for Christoph. I think the Hyperion getting jammed the way that it did by the Stormlancers kept it very limited in the scope of what it could do. Ideally, you would want the Hyperion in this matchup to be running in and killing Stormstriders and Warjacks and all that stuff, and not getting bogged down with the Stormlancers, who at that point already had done their spark node work. And but it's also a testament to how, even though you may have an army that outnumbers your opponent, if you reliably lose a handful of models every turn for no gain, then over the course of the game it just gets worse and worse, and it can slip away from you. And that's what we saw here. Thanks. We saw the disadvantage of having to go second against a list with such incredible anti-infantry capabilities, with such long threat ranges. You know, I mean, these Stormstriders have a very long range. And if you add that to the model size of your spark node, and then the 4-inch electroleap range, and then another 4 inches from that, it becomes almost impossible to keep your army safe from getting leaped at some point. However, with potential list changes, this can be mitigated. We saw earlier in the day that shield guard units and designated electroleap catchers are effective against this kind of a matchup, and also the ability to be faster than Nemo3 is also a significant boost in playing against this caster. So being able to jam the Stormstriders really is a good way to limit their damage output. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching on both YouTube and Twitch and the Facebook live stream. We are going to be taking a short break now, and we will be back with round 4 of the Masters as soon as possible. Thank you very much. This has been George Busher for War Room PL. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and if you want more games, stick around. We're going to be here all night till midnight.